Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, your number one stop for all things polling and election analysis in the United States. And today we're going to be talking about, is this election even going to be close? Hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this. And so we are coming in very, very close to the end of the presidential election. And we are seeing that Donald Trump is in a very strong position to win, unlike what most of the mainstream media will tell you. They say that the race is razor thin. However, these same pundits were saying that Biden was going to win relatively easy and was competitive in Iowa, Ohio, Texas, and Florida, where he ultimately ended up losing in all of those battlegrounds by over 3 percentage points, even losing ground in Hispanic Miami-Dade, as well as in the southern border of Texas with a lot of Hispanics, including, he did improve in Ohio and Iowa, but not to the extent that people thought he was going to. A lot of people thought he was actually going to do quite a bit better there, but he failed to do so, and the pollsters were extremely inaccurate. And after this Ann Seltzer +3 poll out of the state of Iowa, everyone is freaking out. However, we do realize that that is a freakish outlier from Ann Seltzer. Despite her very good track record, you guys have to be able to spot a bad poll when you see one. I mean, they have every single demographic trending left. If you were to actually end up having a D+3 Iowa, this would have to be the map. If we were to kind of just go ahead and edit this, effectively, if that were to be the case, she would actually have to be winning Ohio. Like, look, let's actually even give her all of this just to see. Yeah, if we push this a little bit, that basically puts it to 3. So at that point, Florida would have to be a 6-point win for Harris. Georgia would be a 10-point win. North Carolina, a 9-point win. Ohio, 3 points for Harris. She'd be winning all the Rust Belt states by bigger margins than 2012 Obama, winning Minnesota by more than Obama has ever done in both of the elections, by the way. So she would automatically perform better than Obama and would do a lot better in New Hampshire and Maine than Obama even did as well, and perform the best that any Democrat has in Colorado, pretty much almost in electoral history. And so there is a lot of problems with insinuating that a Iowa +3 for Harris would actually end up being accurate. Donald Trump would have to lose the popular vote by 14 points or more for that to even be the case. And probably would even have to be more, because he'd probably be falling with down to like low amount of black support, probably be below, around, the mid 30s with some, Hispanic groups, maybe high 20s at that point. You would see a bottoming out across the country. That version of Donald Trump that would lose the election like that would practically be a very unpopular version of him. At that point, even South Carolina and Alaska would have to flip in order for that to be the case. But when we look at other pollsters that are kind of in the ballpark of this Gallup article, which has party ID favoring Republicans, and these metrics have been pretty indicative over the past 100 years or so. They've been polling these since 1948, so they've been extremely indicative as to who is actually winning the presidential election. And so when we see here, as of right now, Republicans are ahead by 3 in party ID leaning. Republicans are also up 5 on the polling of party able to handle the most important problem. U.S. satisfaction is at an all-time low, similar to what it was in 1992 and in 2008, where you had landslides against the incumbent party. You also have economic confidence at a pretty bad low as well. Republicans up on America being able to keep America prosperous, presidential job approval at an all-time low, and we see party being able to keep America safe from international threats, a Trump plus or Republican +14 lead. And we see polls like Rasmussen, which had a Biden, lead of about 4 points in their final average in October in my scorecard. They have a Trump +3 result, and Biden ended up winning the popular vote by 4.5. So they were one of the more accurate aggregated pollsters, and they have Donald Trump winning it by about 2.6, so it rounds out to about a 3-point margin, give or take. So that's what we're seeing in the state of, we were seeing that in the national level as of right now. Atlas Intel showing roughly the same thing, a Trump +2 result out of the national level, winning quite easily. And the guys, here's the problem. If the popular vote is even tied, which is basically what RCP has right now, Trump would be dominating all the swing states, and that wouldn't even take into account that Trump would have to be performing better with one non-white voters. So that automatically makes New Mexico, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, some of these states with, Hispanic and, African American population, they would have to be trending to the right for that to even be accounted for. So really, it would actually be even worse than this if the popular vote is tied. And so right now, my election model, and looking at Rich too, he has about a tied result. But when you look at the approval ratings, Donald Trump is literally almost at 52% in the survey, and Kamala Harris is at around, give or take, roughly 47%, or 48, I believe. She's like at about 48. And right now, in the five-way with leaners, she's actually getting about 47%. So she's doing around her job approval. Donald Trump always tends to overperform his favorability rating. So that's also something very important to keep in mind, too. And so when you combine all those factors, the fact that Donald Trump's probably going to do well with non-college whites, he's going to gain with college graduates, probably flip a couple of them at that point. So we see a huge gain for Donald Trump in that department as well. Maybe not as good here, so maybe we can kind of dial this back. But with African American voters, he's most certainly going to be getting at least 17%, give or take right about there. Hispanic voters, he's going to be doing quite well with those. He probably loses this group by maybe 10 points. In Asian/other, I could see a 15-point loss for Trump with this group. And if we were to drag this up and kind of put these a little bit up here, we see 313, but Maine, New Hampshire, and Minnesota are really, really close. And these are the ones that I actually have flipping. Minnesota and New Hampshire are the two states that he picks up in a very surprise election. So that's also something important to keep in mind as well. And if we were to actually kind of shift these a little bit to the right, you would basically get that pickup of Minnesota and New Hampshire. Virginia, about a 2-point race. New Mexico, roughly around a 2-point race as well. But currently filling out my electoral college map that I posted the other day, Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, all of Nebraska except the 2nd Congressional District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, and Missouri are all in the safe column, as well as Iowa and Ohio, including Maine's 2nd Congressional District and Kansas. So those are all safe states. California, Hawaii, Maine's 1st Congressional District, Massachusetts, Maryland, District of Columbia, and Vermont are all in the safe Democrat column. Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Illinois, New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware, Rhode Island, New York are all in the likely Democrat column. They were all safe back in the last election. However, they all are going to fall under 15 points due to Kamala Harris basically underperforming with every single demographic group. And see, Texas and Florida are about 14 points each in this forecast. So very interesting stuff there. We see that Donald Trump is going to improve with Hispanics as well as all other groups. But improving with Hispanics is definitely going to help him out in a place like Texas and Florida a lot more than in other places across the country. Georgia and North Carolina are not going to even be close. Georgia, I actually have North Carolina almost at 9 points for Trump, and Georgia comes out as 8 points for me for Trump. And so that's what we're kind of seeing in these two battlegrounds. Arizona comes out at about 7 points for Trump, Nevada at about 5 points, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are all in the likely column at about 6-point to 7-point victories each. So this is kind of what we're looking at in the swing states there. New Mexico, probably a 2.5-point win for Kamala Harris, as well as Virginia, just being a 1.3 percentage point win in my modeling as of right now in the state. And so looking at these close states, Nebraska 2nd is a 0.6 percentage point win for Kamala Harris, as well as Maine at large. But Minnesota is a 0.4 percentage point flip for Donald Trump, with New Hampshire being about Trump plus 1.2. And so this is where I get my 326 map to 212 map. What's very interesting is that the state of New Hampshire is an anti-incumbent state, which means they usually swing against the incumbent party almost no matter what. And on top of that, they're anti-war. And with an actually unpopular administration on top of all the foreign wars going on, as well as in the fact when you look at the polling, Donald Trump is actually leading in the southern parts of New Hampshire, where presumably all of these Boston implants are at. So it's not guaranteed to flip to Donald Trump. Kamala Harris may very well pick it off, but he does actually have a real shot to pick off the state of New Hampshire. Same thing for Minnesota. I mean, you have, the Minneapolis area, which is very Democrat, but with Donald Trump's enthusiasm, the fact that Kamala Harris was an installed candidate, as well as the fact you have a very low enthusiasm with black voters across the country, which is really what drives these crazy margins in Minneapolis, alongside those suburban college whites, which are shifting to Donald Trump, as well as the fact that you have the base that's mad about Israel-Palestine. You have a lot of voters mad about that. I mean, Trump almost got more of a percentage of the vote in the primary in Minnesota than even Biden did. So that is horrible for an incumbent. Nebraska second does narrowly go blue here. It really could go either way, but I do have it going blue due to the, very, very leftward trend in the district. Virginia, just a 1-point win for Harris. It's going to be way closer than expected, but we're going to see that throughout the night. However, I don't think Donald Trump can flip it. However, it is not out of the question for him to flip it. I just don't see it. And New Mexico, those white liberals in Albuquerque are kind of holding the state back from flipping as of right now. If Donald Trump does outperform with Hispanics, though, he could actually outright win New Mexico, considering that he is actually winning Arizona in my forecast by 7 and winning Texas by roughly about 14 points. So that's kind of what you're seeing there too. And so really, to answer the question at the beginning of the video, it doesn't really seem like this is going to be close at all, with Trump getting 326 to Kamala Harris getting 212 electoral college votes. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And make sure to go to betonline.com where you can bet on the latest odds for the presidential election. I will see you guys in the next video.